Good morning, Calum. Very nice to have you. So we will have a conversation with Calum after Richard about why we are talking all about this. So Calum, Richard talked about something very important. In the Industrial Revolution, we gave all the hand power jobs to machines. In the Technology Revolution, all the mind power things to machines again, and all the things related to the heart are now left with the human. What I'm curious, you spend a lot of time thinking, writing on artificial intelligence, but why are we talking about this at this moment in time? What brought us here? Can you tell a little bit the background that led us here?
Sure. So Richard referred to it, machine learning. In 2012, there was a big bang in artificial intelligence. A man called Jeff Hinton figured out how to get a reasonably well-established branch of statistics called machine learning, and in particular, a process called deep learning. He figured out how to apply that to artificial intelligence. Before 2012, AI, which had been going since 1956, the science started.
Can I ask you a question at this moment? We hear these as jargons, like when we will be hearing some of them. And we are human resources professionals. We deal with people. We come with business, social sciences. Some of us are engineers, but we are not computer engineers, software engineers. So it would be very, very useful for us to know really the meaning behind the jargon. Let's start with artificial intelligence. What is it in a way?
It's really hard to define. And the reason it's really hard to define is that intelligence is really hard to define. All the things that go on inside our heads, like consciousness, intelligence, are hard to define. But the shortest and best definition I know of is that intelligence is goal-oriented, adaptive behavior. So if an entity has a goal and it learns in the process of pursuing that goal, it's intelligent.
And when it is artificial?
It's not made by evolution or by God. It's either made by humans or by aliens.
Or by machines.
The artificial bit is easy, the intelligence bit is hard.
All right. And
we probably also want to define machine learning as well.
Machine learning and deep learning. We hear that when you hear them, they are obvious. Machine learning, the machine that is learning, the deep learning, the deeper learning. But really, what is the deepest sense and meaning of these two terms?
Yeah. So traditional programming gives a machine a very specific recipe, very specific directions for how to do everything. It tells the machine what to do at every step. With machine learning, you acquire a vast amount of data, and you have the machine sift through the data looking for patterns. The machine recognizes patterns, and it learns what to do as a result of that. So an algorithm, and an algorithm is another hard word to define. It's essentially a program which is much looser, much less prescriptive. An algorithm will go through a lake of data and discover some patterns and adapt the way it operates from what it has learned. And then deep learning, which is historical. It looks at the patterns that already exist based on the past data. So nothing new, nothing novel if there is no data. That's how True, but it will then find ways to generate new data.
Right.
To improve its processes. And then we ought to just cover off deep learning as well. Deep learning is a subset of machine learning. It's modeled on the way the human brain works, but it's much, much more simplified than the way a human brain works. And the brain and deep learning has neurons, and each neuron does a process and then passes the output to a neuron above it, which does a more abstracted version of the process. Deep learning is typically 10 or so levels of that kind of process.
So it is actually going beyond the surface, beyond the algorithm, just going deeper into the deeper patterns and creating new insights, new actions.
It does create new insights. And to go back to the first point, 2012 was when that really started to work. And since then, artificial intelligence has started to do what it never did before, which is make money. So Google and Facebook have stolen the advertising industry from the media, which is one of the reasons why there's this massive techlash, because the media don't like that very much. And increasingly, those techniques are going to sweep across the rest of industry, and we will have AI being pervasive.
And what does it mean, all of that change, the artificial intelligence and machines bringing us insights, what does it mean for us as HR professionals in the center of the organizations?
It all depends on when you're talking about. I disagreed with some of the things that Richard said, and I agreed with other things. And I think it would be a good idea if we passed a law that if you say AI will be able to do this or it won't be able to do that, you should always say when you mean. Because a very important point is we are on an exponential growth process. And we always forget, or however many times we're told, we always forget how powerful exponential growth is and how impactful it is. And it's worth giving a little illustration. If we all walked out that door 30 steps, we would travel about 30 meters. If we could walk out that door 30 exponential steps, so our first step was 1 meter, our second was 2, our third was 4, our fourth was 8, and so on, we would go to the moon. But to be specific, our 29th step would take us to the moon, and our 30th step would bring us all the way back. Every step in an exponential process is equivalent to the sum of all the previous steps. And what that means is that in an exponential process, you're always at the beginning. We are only at the beginning of our AI journey, and we will still be at the beginning in 10 years' time. So AI is very, very limited at the moment. It's dumb as a rock, frankly. In 10 years' time, it'll be able to do things that would astonish us now. In 30 years' time, it'll be able to do things that we would scarcely find credible now.
So, and from an HR professional perspective, what are the skills that I need to deal with that? What are the perspectives that I need?
I think in the next 10 years, probably in the next 20 years, what we're going to see in the world of work is more change. People are going to have to change their jobs, they're going to have to reskill, retrain more and more frequently, and you are in the center of that. You're going to have to enable everybody to reskill and retrain. So I think your job is going to get more and more important. Personally, I think in 30 years...
In which sense it will be important, our jobs as HR professionals?
Because you facilitate retraining within companies and outside companies. That is one of the great roles of HR.
And if I'm an HR professional, but if I'm distant to all this jargon and things, what do you advise?
Oh, read my books.
Read your books.
No, seriously, I think AI is the biggest trend. Right now, populism maybe, but AI is the biggest trend sweeping the world over the next generation. And it's incumbent on all of us who want to play a role in this world to understand what it is.
And also, we've seen in the past with some of these trends, is it a hype? I mean, is it a fashion and it will become like a commodity soon, so it will pass? Do you see something like that coming?
It all depends on time. As I say, I think we should pass a law to say, if you're going to make a forecast about what AI can do, whether it's hype or not, you should talk about the time. You specify the time you're talking about. Yes, AI is overhyped now. It cannot do a lot of the things that people think it can do today. In 30 years' time, it'll be able to do more than most people even imagine. So in the long run, it's definitely not hype. It's not going to go away. It may be commodified in the way that electricity was commodified. When electricity first became available, it was seen as being a miracle. We all take it for granted. We get very grumpy if the electricity fails. And AI will be like that. It will be everywhere, it will be pervasive, and we will take it for granted.
Fantastic. And what is the final advice from you to the audience for these 2 days and after the summit? What should we do all about this? You know, one sentence advice.
Take AI seriously.
Take AI seriously. Well, thank you very much, Calum. It's been a pleasure to host you. Calum will be with us in the Future of Work Summit. He has a session tomorrow afternoon, so if you would like to hear more from Calum, we will be seeing him on the Future of Work Summit. Thank you. Thank you for coming all the way.